Alright, poll results time. Looks like we're starting with a vertical lift hill. That's neat. As for elements, we got a Bulgarian twice twisting velocity knot, an ejector roll, and what's that? A 7-way tie? Nothing a wheel can't fix. Okay, banana roll, bent Cuban 8, and lagoon roll. Cue the lo-fi hip-hop. So when I found out that I was going to be doing a vertical lift hill for Bob, I decided to turn it into a bit of a dive coaster like Hang Time at Knott's Berry Farm, except the holding brake is only at 30 degrees instead of 60 because I can't math, but this actually served to my advantage because I have two sections of track going underneath the lift hill, both exiting the twice twisting velocity knot and exiting the lagoon roll, heading into the final brake run. So it all worked out, but I know that supports are going to be an absolute pain once I get to them, which will be in the next episode because I have another one of these planned. But I'm going to live in very willful ignorance and pretend like I'm not going to have as big of a problem with it as I probably will. Now, getting started with the Bulgarian twice twisting velocity knot, and I will admit I had problems with the shaping on almost every single element on this ride, mostly because I've never really had to shape them before. For example, I had never tried doing a Bulgarian twice twisting velocity knot. One, because it's a very long word to say, but two, the roll rate has to be very constant to look and feel right. And on top of that, there are not many real-world examples, if any. It's kind of a toss-up because I've heard the element on Star Trek Operation Enterprise be referred to as a Bulgarian twice twisting velocity knot, but then there are other people that say that it's not, and I'm like, I don't care. It looks like one. I'm just gonna call it one. Whatever. The biggest problem I had with this element in particular is the exit. The exit had very, very terrible lats, and it was a challenge to try and get those at least somewhat under control. Hopefully, when the ride is all said and done, it'll feel okay. I think it does. And actually now I'm moving on to the next element, the ejector roll. Remember how I just said that the Bulgarian twice twisting velocity knot was an absolute pain to shape? Well, this one was too. Mostly because I'd never tried to shape a roll to have constant airtime throughout the entire thing. Because that's the thing with an ejector roll, is that it's a roll, but you experience airtime throughout the entire thing. So I would move one node to try and get ejector at that specific location, and then all of a sudden there would be 0 G's on either side of that node, or there would be lats, and I would be like, what the heck? I'm trying to get it shaped how I want it, and this one took me a solid 20 minutes or half an hour, it felt like, to get the shaping right, and to not only get the shaping right, but to also get the roll to be smooth. That's one thing I struggle with a lot, is getting my elements to be smooth. And I think that's just a hand building issue. It would probably be a lot easier if I did all of this in FVD, but FVD has another learning curve to it, so I'd have to dedicate a lot of time to that before I even decide to make something as complex as a Gerstlauer Infinity. Now, I'm moving on to the banana roll. This one, I hated this so much, because after I finished the entire layout, banana roll, the bent Cuban 8, the lagoon roll, everything was done. I stopped the time lapse, I went into play mode, and then it would stall at the very top of the banana roll, and I would cry silently to myself. So the banana roll you see in the time lapse isn't the exact same as the one in the final layout. It's a little bit shorter, but the final one does crawl a little bit. At the very top, the speed comes like 15 miles an hour, so it might stall in strong winds, perhaps, but you do get quite a bit of hang time at the top of the banana roll, which, after riding hang time and knots myself, is, I think, a good thing, because Gerstlauer Infinities really love air time, more specifically hang time. So now I should be moving on to the bent Cuban 8. What started as a bent Cuban 8, because I had shaped one before for another project that I never released, but which was an actual Mara X car. This one didn't turn out to be a bent Cuban 8. It turned into sort of an Immelman mixed with that goes straight into an overbank turn, which I think for the layout it kind of works out, because that way you're not having multiple elements in super quick succession. And I think if I tried to force it to invert in that place, it wouldn't really feel good. And that way I could also get a little bit of hang time inspiration, because I would have an overbank going into a double down, which actually kind of works out. And it looks alright, so I'm keeping it. Sorry to those who really wanted to see a bent Cuban 8. It both is and is not. This was probably one of the easier elements to shape, to be perfectly honest, other than the overbank. The actual Immelman didn't really take too much to get it to look similar to the beginning of the bent Cuban 8 on G-Force at Drayton Manor. So there's the double down, and after this point, I kind of ran into a brick wall as to where to go next with the layout, because I still had to do the Lagoon roll, and then after all that, go into a final brake run. And as you'll see in a little bit, after I'm finished smoothing all this stuff, as you can tell, I've never done a time lapse before, or voiceover, so I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just talking. I wanted to try to do a little bit of twisty bits, because the layout didn't really have much in the way of just sort of moving along instead of inversion after inversion after inversion. So I decided to do this and then have it sort of roll into the Lagoon roll, which would lead into the final brake run. But I didn't have enough space, so I just deleted it. Way to go. About 5 minutes of work wasted. And I just decided to make a really long section running along the ejector roll, and turn that into the Lagoon roll. Same thing with the twice twisting velocity knot. The challenge with this one was to have the roll nodes spaced perfectly, so that way the roll rate was at least as consistent as I could get it. And as you can see, again, started to get into the final brake run, doing a little bit of adjusting with the exit to the Lagoon roll. I'm almost done with this time lapse. I swear I'm not going to restart it again. Finally got the final brake run placed, bringing it back around, gonna place a transfer track. And as sort of like the layout is finishing up, I want to talk about the second survey. That's right, there's a second one. This one is going to be for color schemes. So you'll see in the survey that for each different possible thing that you can color in No Limits, I'm going to have you choose out a hue, be it yellow, red, orange, etc., and for me to use. And I typically use RAL colors for the color schemes on my layouts. So if you're familiar with those and you have a specific color code you would like me to use, I even have a spot for you to suggest those. And that will probably close next Sunday, the 17th, 11:59 p.m., much like the first survey. Yeah. So as you can see, this just some cinematic shots of the completed layout. I think it looks pretty good so far. I'm excited to see the rest of this sort of build up. And with that, thanks for watching.